Breaking Jerusalem prophecy unfolding. Is the third temple coming soon? A mysterious shift is taking place in Jerusalem. Something prophetic. Something that has been anticipated for centuries. The world's most sacred city is preparing. But for what? Could it be the prelude to prophecy unfolding? For generations, people have waited, watched, and prayed. And now, in the very heart of Jerusalem, signs are emerging that we may be closer than ever to a moment foretold in Scripture. A moment that will change everything. The Bible speaks of a day when Jesus will return, and when that moment comes, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives. And when they do, the mountain itself will split in two. But why this exact spot? Why Jerusalem? And what unseen force is already moving, preparing for his arrival? Some say it's just speculation, others believe it's inevitable. But what if I told you that what's happening in Jerusalem right now is more than just religious devotion? What if I told you that the very foundation of this ancient city is shifting, spiritually, politically, and even physically, right before our eyes? This isn't just about faith, it's about history, prophecy, and the future of the world. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will leave you speechless. And before we dive in, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Bible Pathways. We bring you powerful biblical insights, prophecy updates, and deep scriptural truths that you won't hear anywhere else. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. Jerusalem is unlike any other city on earth. It is more than just ancient streets and sacred landmarks. It is a place where history, faith, and prophecy collide. Every stone, every wall, every moment in this city whispers of promises made long ago. But today something extraordinary is happening. For centuries, believers have looked to Jerusalem as the center of biblical prophecy, and history has proven time and time again that when Jerusalem moves, the world feels it. In 70 AD, the Second Temple was destroyed, just as Jesus foretold. In 1948, after nearly 2,000 years, Israel became a nation again, a moment many saw as the fulfillment of ancient prophecy. In 1967, Jerusalem was reunited under Israeli control during the Six-Day War, marking another milestone. Each event, a piece of a grand prophetic timeline. But what about today? Right now in Jerusalem, tensions are rising. The world's most contested city stands at the center of a spiritual and geopolitical storm. And the battle isn't just about history, it's about the future. In April 2023, violent clashes erupted at the Al-Aqsa Mosque during Ramadan, one of the holiest times in Islam. Hundreds of worshippers barricaded themselves inside as Israeli forces moved in, fearing that radical groups were preparing for confrontation. The world watched as tensions at this sacred site boiled over once again. But why does this keep happening? And why is it significant? The answer lies in prophecy. The Temple Mount is the most contested piece of land on earth. For Jews, it is the site of the first and second temples, the holiest place in their faith. For Muslims, it houses the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in Islam. And for Christians, it is tied to the future return of Christ. The Bible warns that in the last days, Jerusalem will become a burdensome stone for all nations. And today we see that playing out before our eyes. World leaders, religious figures, and entire nations are drawn into the struggle for control over this sacred ground. Some believe the rebuilding of the Third Temple is closer than ever. Others warn that such an event could trigger a conflict, unlike anything the world has seen before. Could this be the next step in prophecy? Are we witnessing the beginning of a new chapter in the biblical timeline? One thing is certain, the world's eyes are on Jerusalem. And as tensions rise, so do the questions. Are we truly prepared for what's coming next? For nearly 2,000 years, the Jewish people have longed for the restoration of their sacred temple in Jerusalem. And now, we may be closer than ever to seeing that dream become a reality. But at what cost? The construction of the Third Temple is more than just an architectural project. It is a prophetic milestone, one that many believe will set in motion a series of unstoppable events. According to biblical prophecy, the moment this temple rises, history will take a turn from which there is no return. Across Jerusalem, preparations are already underway. The Temple Institute has spent decades meticulously recreating the sacred artifacts needed for temple worship, golden menorahs, priestly garments, and even silver trumpets. They have trained priests in the ancient rituals, awaiting the day when they can once again serve in a rebuilt temple. And in 2022, an event shook the world of biblical prophecy: the arrival of 5 unblemished red heifers in Israel, an essential requirement for the purification of the temple. For many, these preparations are a cause for excitement, a sign that prophecy is unfolding before our eyes. But for others, it is a chilling reminder that with great prophecy comes great upheaval, because the location of the third temple is no ordinary piece of land. The Temple Mount is at the heart of one of the world's most volatile conflicts. For Jews, it is the site of the first and second temples, the holiest place in their faith. For Muslims, it is home to the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock, 2 of the most sacred sites in Islam. And for Christians, it is tied to the return of Jesus Christ. This is where history and prophecy collide. And the battle for this sacred ground is not just a religious dispute, it is a geopolitical flashpoint. Recent events have only added to the tension. The Israel-Hamas conflict has brought renewed violence to the region, and tensions over the Temple Mount have sparked clashes that threaten to spiral into something much larger. Political analysts warn that any serious movement toward rebuilding the Third Temple could ignite a crisis that would shake the entire world. Could this be the conflict that ushers in the final days? Could we be standing on the edge of a prophecy that is about to be fulfilled? One thing is certain: the world is watching Jerusalem, and what happens next could change everything. For thousands of years, the Jewish people have longed for one thing: the rebuilding of their sacred temple in Jerusalem. And today we are closer than ever to seeing that happen. But is the world truly ready for what comes next? Because when this happens, it won't just be a symbol, it will be a turning point for humanity. And as history has shown, great moments of prophecy often come with great cost. The first temple, built by King Solomon, stood as a beacon of faith, only to be reduced to ruins by the Babylonians in 586 BC. The second temple, painstakingly rebuilt, became the center of Jewish worship, until the Romans destroyed it in 70 AD. Each temple marked an era, and each temple's destruction came with immense suffering. So what about the third temple? If it is rebuilt, will it usher in an era of peace and fulfillment, or will it ignite a conflict unlike anything the world has seen before? The answer may already be unfolding. Today, tensions surrounding the Temple Mount are higher than ever. The Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque stand on the very site where the third temple is prophesied to rise. And any move toward reclaiming that land would send shockwaves through the Middle East and beyond. Political analysts warn that even the suggestion of building the third temple could provoke an international crisis. The Israel-Hamas conflict has already pushed the region into turmoil, and with global powers taking sides, the possibility of an all-out war looms closer than many realize. Could this be the moment that shifts history? Could the rising conflict over Jerusalem be the beginning of something far greater, something foretold in Scripture? One thing is clear: prophecy is never fulfilled without consequence. The world is moving toward a critical moment, and as events unfold, one question remains: are we prepared for what comes next? For over 2,000 years, an essential requirement for the purification of the temple has been missing: a flawless red heifer. Without it, the biblical purification rituals necessary for temple worship could not be performed. Generations of scholars, priests and believers searched, but no unblemished red heifer was ever found. Then in 2022, something extraordinary happened. A farmer in Texas, seemingly unaware of the magnitude of his work, had been raising cattle. Among them were 5 red heifers, each meeting the strict biblical criteria: no spots, no blemishes, never yoked. When word of this spread, the Temple Institute in Jerusalem took action. These heifers were flown to Israel, where they were examined by experts, and to the amazement of many, they were declared perfect. For some, this was merely an interesting coincidence. For others, it was a chilling confirmation that prophecy is unfolding before our very eyes. According to the Book of Numbers, the ashes of a red heifer are necessary to purify those who enter the temple. Without this purification, the sacred rituals of temple service cannot be performed. And now, for the first time in millennia, the missing piece of the prophecy is in place. But what does this mean? Are we witnessing the final preparations for the third temple? The arrival of these red heifers has ignited a global debate. Religious scholars, political leaders, and prophecy watchers are all asking the same question. What happens next? Some believe this is a divine sign that the temple's construction is imminent. Others warn that moving forward with such an endeavor could lead to catastrophic conflict, and the timing is no accident. Tensions over the Temple Mount are at an all-time high. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, standing on the very ground where the temple is prophesied to be rebuilt, has become a flashpoint for conflict. Clashes have erupted between worshippers and security forces, escalating into violent confrontations that have drawn the attention of the entire world. If the third temple is built, the world as we know it will change forever. So, is this a sign of the end times? Are we standing at the threshold of a prophecy that has been thousands of years in the making? One thing is certain: the pieces are falling into place. The question is, are we ready for what comes next? Jerusalem, one of the holiest places on earth and at the same time one of the most contested. For centuries, this city has been the focal point of faith, prophecy, and war. But today, tensions surrounding its most sacred site, the Temple Mount, are at an all-time high. And what happens here could determine the future of the world. For Jews, the Temple Mount is the holiest site in existence, the place where the first and second temples once stood. For Muslims, it is home to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest site in Islam. And for Christians, it is tied directly to the return of Jesus Christ. But this is more than a religious conflict. It is a geopolitical flashpoint. Recent years have seen repeated clashes over the control of the Temple Mount. In April 2023, during the convergence of Ramadan and Passover, violence erupted once again. Hundreds of Palestinians barricaded themselves inside the Al-Aqsa Mosque, fearing that Jewish groups planned to perform Passover sacrifices near the site. Israeli police intervened, leading to widespread unrest and international condemnation. This cycle of tension isn't new, but it is escalating. And with every new conflict, the stakes rise higher. At the heart of this struggle is a prophecy that many believe is coming closer to fulfillment. The Bible warns that in the last days, Jerusalem will become a heavy stone for all the nations. And today, world leaders, religious authorities, and entire governments are being drawn into this battle over sacred ground. The Temple Institute, an organization in Jerusalem dedicated to preparing for the construction of the Third Temple, has already recreated the sacred golden menorah, restored the priestly garments, and trained priests to conduct biblical sacrifices. They believe the temple will rise again, and they are preparing for it. But the world is not ready. Any attempt to reclaim the Temple Mount for the construction of a third temple would send shockwaves through the Middle East. It would provoke an international crisis, drawing in nations from every corner of the world. Some believe this could be the event that triggers the final battles of biblical prophecy. And yet preparations continue. The question is no longer if Jerusalem will be at the center of global conflict. It already is. The real question is, what happens next? Are we standing on the edge of a prophecy that is about to unfold? One thing is certain: Jerusalem is a city unlike any other. And as history has shown, when Jerusalem moves, the world follows. The Third Temple, a long-awaited sign of prophecy, a place of worship and devotion. But could it also be the stage for the greatest deception in human history? The Bible warns of an impostor, one who will rise to power in the final days. A figure who will stand in the holy place proclaiming himself to be God. Could the Third Temple, so central to prophecy, also become the very place where the Antichrist reveals himself? This isn't speculation. Scripture is clear. In 2 Thessalonians 2:4 it is written, "He will oppose and will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God." But before that moment comes, the temple must be rebuilt. And as we've already seen, preparations for that day are already underway. The Temple Institute has meticulously reconstructed sacred artifacts. Priests have been trained. The perfect red heifers have arrived. It seems everything is aligning for a prophetic moment, unlike any other. But what comes next? Many look at the world today and see the signs of deception growing stronger. Global leaders promising peace while stoking division. Powerful voices rising, gaining influence, offering solutions to the world's problems. The Bible tells us that in the last days a charismatic leader will emerge, one who speaks of unity, of order, of hope. But beneath the surface, he will be the great deceiver. Could we already be seeing the forerunners of the Antichrist taking shape? The world is becoming more desperate for answers. Wars, economic turmoil, global instability. People are searching for someone who can bring order out of chaos. And when the time is right, the deception will begin. Some believe the third temple will be the culmination of prophecy, a moment of divine fulfillment. But others warn that it may also be the stage for a sinister agenda, one that few are prepared to face. So what will happen when the temple is finally built? Will it usher in an era of worship or an era of great deception? Will it be the fulfillment of God's plan or the beginning of the greatest spiritual battle the world has ever seen? The answers may come sooner than we think. But one thing is certain: the world is moving toward a moment of decision. And when it comes, will we recognize the truth? Or will we, like so many before us, be deceived? The world is shifting. Tensions are rising. And at the center of it all, Jerusalem. For years, the Bible has warned of wars and rumors of wars, and today those warnings are no longer distant prophecies. They are unfolding before our very eyes. The world is on edge. Nations are forming new alliances. Governments are taking sides, and the balance of power is shifting in ways we've never seen before. Could we be watching prophecy unfold in real time? Look at the headlines. Conflicts are escalating across the Middle East. Israel faces threats from multiple fronts: Hezbollah in the north, Hamas in the south, and growing tensions with Iran. The recent war in Gaza has heightened fears that the region is on the brink of an even greater crisis. But beyond the immediate battles, something much bigger is happening. Nations are aligning in ways that eerily reflect biblical prophecy. The Abraham Accords, a historic peace agreement signed between Israel and several Arab nations, seemed like a step toward stability. But beneath the surface, old rivalries remain, and new threats are emerging. While some nations move toward diplomacy, others prepare for war. Iran and its allies openly vow to destroy Israel, while Western nations debate their role in the region. And then there's Jerusalem. This ancient city is more than just a political hotspot. It is the epicenter of prophecy. The Bible tells us that in the last days, Jerusalem will be a burdensome stone for all the nations. And today, world leaders are being drawn into the battle over its future. The US has shifted its policies toward Israel, while global superpowers like Russia and China are taking a more active role in Middle Eastern affairs. The conflict is no longer just regional, it is becoming global, and what happens next could change everything. The Third Temple is at the heart of this unfolding drama. As preparations continue for its construction, the potential for conflict grows. Religious leaders are calling for its return, but political forces are warning that such a move could ignite chaos on an unprecedented scale. The Temple Mount remains one of the most contested sites in the world, and any attempt to alter its status could be the spark that ignites a full-scale war. The Bible speaks of a time when the nations will gather against Israel. Are we approaching that moment? As the world watches, prophecy continues to unfold. The question is no longer if Jerusalem will be the center of global conflict. It already is. The real question is, what comes next? And more importantly, are we ready? The Bible's prophecies are not just ancient stories. They are warnings, roadmaps guiding us through the unfolding events of history. They are not meant to instill fear, but to prepare us. For thousands of years, people have watched and waited for the signs of the last days. And now, in our lifetime, we are witnessing events that align with biblical predictions in ways never seen before. But the question remains, are we paying attention? Jerusalem, the heart of biblical prophecy, is once again at the center of global attention. Nations are shifting, alliances are forming, and conflicts are escalating. The very tensions surrounding the Temple Mount, the rise of global leaders promising peace while fueling division, and the rapid alignment of nations all point towards something bigger, something prophetic. The Bible tells us that in the last days, deception will be rampant. False prophets will arise, leading many astray. Wars and rumors of wars will dominate the headlines, and the nations will turn their attention to Jerusalem, making it a burdensome stone for the entire world. Are we not seeing this today? Yet, as believers, we are not called to fear. Jesus himself told us to watch, to be vigilant, to understand the signs, not so that we would panic, but so that we would be ready, because the return of Christ is not a myth. It's not a vague possibility. It is a certainty. One day, the same feet that walked the streets of Jerusalem 2,000 years ago will touch the ground again. The same Jesus who was crucified, buried, and rose again will return, not as a suffering servant, but as the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. When that day comes, no government, no army, no power on earth will stand against him. He will reign, and every knee will bow. The question is, are you ready? Because the signs are here, the clock is ticking, and time is running out. Stay vigilant, stay prepared, and if you want to continue uncovering the biblical truth shaping our world today, make sure to subscribe to Bible Pathways. We are here to bring you the facts, the history, and the prophecies that reveal God's plan for the days ahead. Don't just watch prophecy unfold. Understand it. Be ready, because He is coming soon.